Hello everyone and welcome to today's random review. Today I will be reviewing 2 Weeks Notice, episode 2 of the animated adult cartoon series Brickleberry. 2 Weeks Notice follows Steve as he attempts to do good deeds to avoid going to hell, after being informed of this by his doctor. The subplot follows Malloy, the talking bear, as introduced in last week's, as in the previous episode, the pilot, as he attempts to become a ranger at Brickleberry with the sole intention of murdering bullying animals who had mocked him for being a house bear. The episode opens with Steve being primarily selfish, refusing to help Ethel while she is assisting blind campers with the blind camp Ethel had set up, being more interested in taking photographs on his phone and updating his Facebook status. Steve then brags to Ethel that he is going on a double date with Denzel. During the date, Steve only further alienates his date by talking about himself and refusing to listen to her story of being held captive by the North Koreans and being bailed out via a negotiation with former President of the US, Jimmy Carter. Denzel, meanwhile, is being very attentive to his date, an elderly woman named Myrtle. The two eventually go to Myrtle's place and proceed to have sex. Unfortunately for Denzel, Myrtle's mother, who is even more senior than she is, walks in on them, thus disrupting his amorous night with Myrtle and ruining his evening. As in Denzel's words, cock-blocked by a 90-year-old, ain't that some shit? Much to Ethel's disgust, as she had asked about their evening. Meanwhile, Steve, having abandoned his date, manages to attract the attention of a woman, revealed to be a prostitute, whom he had also had sex with without protection and had acquired from him $500 for her services, unbeknownst to Steve, who believed she was a legitimate date, not a hooker. Steve then goes to his doctor, Dr. Kuzniak, a recurring character, a kind and compassionate man, although surgically inept at his job, as good-intentioned as he may be. Voiced by Tom Kenny, also. Dr. Kuzniak informs Steve that he is inflicted with so many diseases that it is the equivalent of syphilis having sex with cancer, syphilides, as Steve calls it, and that, unfortunately for Steve, he now only has 2 weeks to live. Steve resolves to do good deeds and receives counsel from a priest, who advises him to follow Ethel's lead upon learning that Ethel does charity work for blind children at Brickleberry Park. Steve agrees and attempts to assist Ethel, who is skeptical at first, but advises Steve to read to the campers, to which Steve does, proceeding to inform campers about women's magazines, specifically what the women are wearing in the lace corset section, much to their delight. He also teaches them archery. Meanwhile, Malloy, who is indulging in his usual pastime of junk food and being obnoxious, is bullied by some other animals, specifically skunks, for being a house bear. Malloy counters by saying he is going inside where he lives and mocks them for being unable to get into the garbage cans to eat food, as they are now blocked off by rocks. The animals proceed to snatch his food away from him and beat him up. Malloy resolves to get a gun and kill them in revenge. Woody, however, counters this by saying that bears cannot become park rangers. And since Steve was fired from his job at Brickleberry, a new ranger is needed, so Malloy persistently asks Woody to be in the new ranger's position. He even asks Steve, mocking him for dying in 2 weeks, and pleads with him to tell Woody that his lifelong ambition is for Malloy to become a park ranger. To which Steve counters by saying that God only put three types of animals on the planet: a type to ride, a type to eat, and whales. Meanwhile, Steve's good deeds are continuing on, and he proceeds to read to the campers. This has a positive effect on Ethel, who admires the new attitude Steve has adopted. However, this is short-lived when she receives a call from Dr. Kuzniak informing her that Steve is not really dying, as he had unintentionally mixed up his blood records with that of the priest's, who promptly dies at a wedding dressed as a clown. However, because of Steve's new change in attitude, Ethel refuses to tell Steve of this, instead preferring the new Steve, much to Connie's disgust, as she believes that it is the right thing to do for Ethel to tell Steve the truth, as he deserves to know. Steve, continuing his good deeds, agrees to give Connie a Brazilian, but upon seeing Connie's neck and body is disgusted by such a sight, and resolves to Malloy's previous idea, as per their previous conversation, to which Malloy had tried to convince Steve to become a park ranger. Malloy had also informed Steve that there could be no God, as who would have created such an ugly person as Connie, also citing Africa, war, and disease. Upon seeing Connie, Steve agrees with Malloy's assessment that there is no God, and thus agrees to do crazy things such as snorting angel dust, getting exceedingly drunk, and generally acting like an idiot. Ethel resolves to do the right thing and asks Denzel for help. Denzel, meanwhile, had cracked onto Agnes, Myrtle's mother, and agrees to hook up with her. However, Myrtle comes home and discovers her mother having just had sex with Denzel. This proceeds to the two having a vicious fight, and Agnes nearly killing her daughter, upon the intervention of Denzel, who then proceeds to have a threesome with both elderly women, thus resulting in their deaths due to a heart attack after intercourse. Upon hearing of this, of Steve's plight, Denzel agrees to disguise himself as God, and with Connie and Ethel's assistance, he manages to convince Steve that he will be forgiven of his past sins and not die in 3 days' time, if he agrees to turn his life around, to which Steve does. Meanwhile, Malloy, having tricked Woody into assigning a gay park ranger via Craigslist under the adults only section, citing the need to not have another female ranger, decides, and killing said ranger when Woody goes out to get the paperwork, becomes the new park ranger. Malloy promptly obtains his gun, goes outside, murders the animals that were bullying him, and then promptly quits. To which, thankfully for Woody, Steve returns and asks for his job back. Steve, furious, waves the gun around at Malloy, stating that he has no respect for a gun or responsibility, and accidentally kills Steve, who promptly arrives in heaven, who promptly dies and ascends to heaven, to which he is seen by God and congratulated on just barely scraping into heaven. Steve questions whether God can really be God, as he is not black, as he was tricked in Denzel into believing that God is indeed African American. God states that he is God, to which Steve promptly earns his place in hell by kicking God, to which he promptly casts Steve down into an exact replica of Brickleberry, in which Steve's estimation makes complete sense. Well, that was my assessment. Well, that was my review of Brickleberry Season 1, Episode 2, 2 Weeks Notice. A good episode that follows on and establishes the traits of the characters introduced in the first episode, which was quite funny. Following Steve as the primary focus, it was a good choice, as Steve, I think, is the funniest character. Also demonstrating that Connie, even though is mocked and proceeded to be mocked by the other characters for her physical appearance, seems to be the kindest character on the show, while Ethel comes in at a distant second for being the most morally righteous character, who does do good things, but can do the wrong thing, even if it is for a good reason. Malloy, of course, is up to his usual antics of being obnoxious but somehow still likeable, and Woody being angry and as frustrated as ever as the lead park ranger. Also introducing Dr. Kuzniak as a recurring character is quite funny, as he is a good addition to the show, and we will be seeing more of him as the series goes on. I apologise if I sound a little sluggish in this review, as I am a little tired, but I felt that I needed to upload some more content as my views have been dropping recently, and I wanted to upload something to the channel for this week. Well, that's all we have time for today. Please hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Suggest a comment down in the comment section below if you have a suggestion for something else for me to review. And please check out the community tab to sign the poll that I've put up advising of what you would like to see for Arc Within an Arc Episode 3. I've been Daniel. This has been Random Reviews. Until next time, be cool, stay safe everybody. Goodbye for now.